Welcome in, you guys. We got One Piece 11/20 spoilers, and boy oh boy do we have some things to talk about today. So we're gonna just hop right into it, and what I want to tackle in today's video is mainly what happens in the middle of the chapter. Because I'll admit, one of the few times I'll actually say this, but the ending of this chapter, according to the brief spoilers, seems a little bit lackluster. But I will reserve my opinion until we get the full spoiler drop. But for now, let's go to the middle of the chapter, because we see Atlas taking one for the team. So last chapter, Atlas talked about how York is tracking their movements, and even if they left Egghead Island, York will still be able to tell where they're going. And that is something we can't have. So I was kind of curious to see what Atlas would do this chapter, and we come to find out that Atlas flies up to the Labo phase, knocks Lilith unconscious. She then flies over to Venus, grabs him, flies away, and then explodes. Okay, so this was very shocking. I will say that, coming into these spoilers, reading that the title of the chapter is in honor of Atlas, I was like, okay, Atlas is gonna do something crazy. And then we got the spoilers, and I was like, okay, Atlas going after Venus, that's a little bit weird. How is Atlas gonna win? Before we got the additional spoilers saying that Atlas exploded herself, I was like, yo, Atlas is cooked. Because realistically, Atlas holding off Venus any other way than a self-destruction wouldn't be possible. Atlas got one-tapped by hybrid form Fat Rob Lucci. There's no way she's surviving against Venus, the man who took down 50 Mark III Pacifista in the span of a single chapter. It just wasn't happening. So when we found out that Atlas sacrificed herself, I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So now that Atlas has officially kicked the bucket, the only satellites, or the only Vegapunks left alive are Lilith and York. And that's crazy. Dude, we started this with 7 Vegapunks. Vegapunk and his 6 satellites. There's only 2 left. The main body's dead. Shaka's dead. Edison's dead. Pythagoras is dead. Atlas is dead. We got so many dead bodies here. It's crazy. I've never seen Oda. I mean, I guess it makes sense since, they're all technically a fraction of a person, but I've never seen Oda pull the trigger on so many deaths before in a single arc. So yeah, though, now that Atlas has taken one for the team, Zoro and Jinbei will now be able to easily catch back up with the Thousand Sunny. If they've even left yet, right? Because Atlas, when she knocked Lilith unconscious, I'm assuming the Thousand Sunny is still chilling on the Labo face. They haven't actually made their move yet. So yeah, Zoro and Jinbei could just hop on board, and then they can just simply coup de burst off the island. It does bring up a question that they posed last chapter. Nami was like, hey, we're gonna send the Thousand Sunny flying, and you guys are gonna have to do something to break our fall. So I guess that does bring that back into question. But now that Jinbei is freed up, I wonder if Jinbei could just easily, rise the waters or cushion the waters for the Thousand Sunny to land safely. Granted, though, if he could do that, I feel like he would have done that in Wano when they fell off the cliff. But, either way, I'm not super worried about them now that Venus has essentially been stalled off. Granted, it's just an explosion. I'm sure Venus will be just fine. He can regenerate. But we do have to remember that it does take a while for the Gorosei members to get their bodies back, right? Whenever Saturn got attacked, or whenever, Warkody or these other characters take damage, it takes panels on panels for them to get back up and fight again. So yeah, I think this might actually be one of the last times we see Venus, which is kind of crazy. Also, I wonder how Zoro feels about this, right? Because last we saw, Zoro had this moment with Venus where they were talking about the Kitetsu blades. So I wonder if we'll get more on that front. I hope we do. I hope Atlas just doesn't come in at a really big moment right when we're about to get some sword or Wano lore, and then takes Nasujiro away. But either way, though, now that Atlas is gone, the only Vegapunk left alive is Lilith, who's on our side, of course. York is still there. But now that Lilith is here, it does make me wonder what role she's going to play in the future. Will she travel with the Straw Hats and then stay on Elbaf? Will she join the crew with Bonnie? Or will Lilith find a home somewhere else? I am curious to see what's going to happen with her now more than ever, now that she's essentially alone, right? Beforehand, when Atlas was here, I was like, oh, her and Atlas can go off and do their own thing as Vegapunks. But now that it's just Lilith, I have no clue. I do think it is significant, though, that the only Vegapunk or satellite left alive on our side is the evil one. So maybe this will help, you know, reinsurge Neo-Mads, because Neo-Mads was founded with Judge and Caesar, and they're both, quote, evil scientists. So I would be surprised if Lilith actually joins up with them. Why would she do that? I don't know. You know, she's broke. She has no money. She wants to build things. So maybe she'll find a really nice home with them. Because quite honestly, I can't imagine Lilith staying on Elbaf by herself. I feel like that's such a weird combo. But I would love to ask you guys, what do you think about the Atlas situation? How do you feel about Lilith now being the only Vegapunk left on our side? I always have to throw that out there because York is still just chilling on the Labo phase. But yeah, I would love to hear any and all thoughts down below. So now the next thing I want to talk about is Emeth, the ancient giant robot, my favorite character in One Piece. I love robots. But yes, Emeth is now fighting the Gorosei. The leakers don't exactly go into detail as to who Emeth is fighting. They just say the Gorosei. So it could be just Jupiter and Warkudi, the ones who are in close vicinity, or Marcus Mars could be here as well. The reason I say maybe Marcus Mars, though, is because last we saw Luffy sent him flying like Team Rocket. So did he come back yet? Is he still missing? We don't know. There's also Saturn. Saturn was not present last chapter. We don't know where he's at. So is he now here fighting Emeth, or is he somewhere else still? No clue, no clue. But yes, the Gorosei are more or less focusing on Emeth now more than ever, since they know that the broadcast will not end until Emeth has been properly destroyed. And we come to find out in these spoilers that Emeth actually loses their arm to the Gorosei. The Gorosei managed to break one of his arms off, which is pretty crazy, given the fact that last chapter, Emeth used that same arm to smash Warkudi's tusk. So I kind of wonder how the Gorosei managed to do this. Was it Warkudi? Did he run that back? You know, was it Saturn maybe doing something? Was it Jupiter biting it off? I don't know. You know, I feel like whenever it comes to Emeth and the Gorosei, I do root for both sides, because I do think both sides are fascinating when it comes to their movesets and what they're capable of. So I am curious to see who actually did the damage here. So after Emeth gets injured, Emeth has a little bit of an inner monologue. Granted, we don't know if it's an inner monologue or if they're singing out loud, but they're like, oh, now that the time is here, I'm going to use that. And it's like, brother, what is Emeth going to do? You know, like, what does Emeth have in their arsenal that would be appropriate for this situation? You know, I've seen a couple of theories out there. People, ever since Emeth got revealed, said that they were going to blow themselves up, and I could see that. Right now, Ekid Island is essentially trashed. No one is really alive here that we need. You know, if Emeth were to self-destruct, it would be the perfect way to stall the Gorosei. And, you know, it would kind of mimic what Atlas did earlier as well. Which also, I just gotta say, but Oda, I think, kind of foreshadowed Atlas sacrificing herself for the Straw Hats. You know, just going back to the beginning of Egghead, one of the first things we saw when we got here was a giant holographic robot fighting a giant holographic space dragon thing, which is pretty notable because we can look at that now and say, oh, you know, Oda is foreshadowing Emeth versus the Gorosei, the celestial dragons. And if you remember, after we saw those holograms, Luffy tried to fight them, but he couldn't. He phased through the holograms. He didn't know how to hit the dragon. You know, kind of like how Luffy wasn't able to damage the Gorosei because they just keep on regenerating. And then after that happened, the first Vegapunk that Luffy met was Atlas. And Atlas, after talking to Luffy, ends up blasting off by herself and fighting the holographic dragon for Data. And it's like, yo, that's essentially what happens here. You know, we have the celestial dragons versus Emeth and Atlas. You know, everybody else is making it off. So I can't help but look back at that moment and think about how hard Oda foreshadowed this chapter in a way, which I know people throw the word foreshadowing out a lot for a lot of goofy situations and small things, but I feel like this really does fit, you know? But, you know, going back to Emeth though, Emeth is now going to whip out some special ability or special weapon, and I don't know what it is. You know, will it be able to damage the Gorosei? Will it be something that has to do with Joy Boy or Sun God Nika. We're not exactly sure. You know, Oda is just blue balling us right now, which kind of brings me to the end of this chapter. And the reason why, you know, I don't want to touch on it too much, but Oda ends up repeating a bit of Vegapunk's message. You know, we're not sure what the full context is yet because we don't have the full spoilers, but Vegapunk essentially reiterates Roger and the crew knowing about the Void Century. And it's like, yo, you said this 2 chapters ago, you know? We learned about this back in Sabaody. I guess the main takeaway here is that the entire world is now learning that Roger is a member of the D clan. And I guess one question I have now is, what is the significance of Roger having the D? You know, because Roger's dead, right? If this was a character that was alive, I'd be like, oh, okay, like maybe he's gonna play a big role in the final saga. But Roger's gone. But Roger also had a D. So like, what does that mean? What is Oda trying to tell us here? In a weird way, I kind of feel like that's something we're going to find out soon. With how much Oda has been hinting at the D for like the last 3 or 4 chapters, I feel like he is going to give us at least one big snippet of new information. And I do wonder if we're going to get that from the Vegapunk message, because in these spoilers, we do come to find out that Vegapunk has one final part of the message left. So maybe next chapter, we are going to get that uninterrupted, and then Emeth is going to perish or something. I don't know. As far as Emeth goes, though, I'm still very torn on whether or not he's going to make it off of this island. I feel like it would be cool if Emeth survived and, you know, he whipped out some ultimate weapon and staved off the Gorosei and escaped with the Straw Hats. But when you think about Emeth and all the information he has stored in his noggin, it's like, yo, if this guy makes it off, I mean, that's an easy ticket to the Void Century, information about Joy Boy, the 20 Kingdoms. It's like, yo, like, will Oda actually have this character survive and give us all of that? I don't know. I don't think he will. I really don't think he will. With how hard Oda blue balled us with this chapter, and, you know, still dropping, quote, that and stuff, I feel like Oda is going to play his cards close to his chest. But those are just my thoughts. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about all of this. Tomorrow, when the full spoilers drop, I do think we are going to get a lot more information regarding everything we talked about here and the ending of this chapter. And we will be going through the full spoilers together as well. So, you know, stay tuned for that. You know, like I said, once a month, I try to bring back the old format of spoiler videos. And I think tomorrow's full spoiler videos, we are going to do just that. You know, hopefully we can slowly ease our way back into the normal spoiler format. That is the goal. And tomorrow we're going to test it out and see how it goes. But yes, thank you guys so much for being here. I really freaking appreciate it. And I will catch you guys on the next chapter or the next spoiler drop. Sai signing out.